Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Founder Files. Today, I'm speaking to the co-founders and co-CEOs of Payment24, Shadab Rahil and Nolan Daniel. Payment24 is a fintech software-as-a-service business servicing the oil and gas industry across 20 different countries on 4 continents with an employee presence in 11 of those countries. So we're going to get some fantastic insights into how they scaled their business internationally so successfully. To kick off, they share their founding story of developing software to solve the problems that their customers had. The principle was, if they buy it, we'll build it, which I'm sure most of you will resonate with. We talk about the endpoint of that journey in terms of buy it, then build it, and how they integrated all the separate product puzzle pieces they developed into one white label enterprise platform with modularised products. They share the story of how Standard Bank acquired 40% of the company and what that unlocked for them. Spoiler alert, it wasn't capital. They explain how they maintained focus and discipline as technical founders to grow organically and to avoid the temptation of new builds and shiny opportunities, which I know we can all be guilty of. I'm not a technical founder, but I still am guilty of that. We talk about how they expanded internationally and how they got new customers in new geographies to come to them instead of them going to the customers. And it's not actually as complicated as you think. They talk about their investment into a Swiss fintech in February of 2023 to open up channels into Europe and why this has been harder than expected. And as always, some beautiful insights and practical lessons in between. If you want to hear about how to be disciplined and impatient about your success at the same time, then this is the episode for you. Ladies and gentlemen, Shadab and Nolan. Welcome to The Founder Files, the podcast that's like eavesdropping on a conversation with a successful entrepreneur over a fireside chat. Join me, Cameron Coots, through this unique experience of unfiltered stories and insights from scaling founders around the globe as they share their ups, downs, and everything in between. Nolan, Shadab, welcome to The Founder Files. You are another one of the fintech solutions that I've had on the podcast, and I'm so excited to hear about your story because although fintech is spoken about as an industry, it's so broad. There's so many applications and there's so many amazing solutions out there. Your growth trajectory has been inspiring, and I can't wait to share that with the audience. But without further ado, I guess just welcome to the show.
Hi, Cameron. Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
So, guys, like I start every episode now, do you mind just jumping straight into it and letting me know, explaining how the business works, what the business is, and how the business model works?
Sure, I'll take that. So Payment24 is an enterprise white label platform. Our focus currently is always on enterprise solutions for large enterprises like corporates, oil companies, banks, transport companies, car rental companies, and so on. We currently operate in close to 20 plus countries with physical presence in 10 or 11 of them across 4 different continents. Our headquarters is based in Cape Town, as you know, but we've also recently invested in a company where for the European market, which is headquartered out of Geneva. We've appointed a separate CEO for that as well. It's still new and under the name of Energy24, but it's going well, and let's see how that works out. At this point, our focus really is in 3 business verticals across the 6 industries that I mentioned. One is fleet payment systems. Second one is loyalty and rewards. And third one is payment processing using our Cloud Switch platform. Within these 3 payment verticals, we've also added like plus minus 15 to 20 different products that support these 3 different verticals. And the idea of the platform has always been to encourage our enterprise customers to design their customer-facing products, B2B or B2C, under their own brand name and take it to the market. And these supporting products underlying these 3 major verticals is what allows them to extend the product offer and make their own product roadmap. Although Payment24 being a SaaS product, cloud-based product, has its own platform roadmap. But with this, the way we've designed it, we're encouraging our customers and giving them the opportunity to target different market segments and customer segments within their industries and design different products for their environment. Therefore, they can have a proper product offer roadmap on their side. Our business model itself is obviously software as a service, hosted on Microsoft Azure. And what that means is it's entirely transactional based and usage based platform. Whatever components you use, you either pay a monthly fees or a transaction fee, depending on what modules you are using. And with initial implementation fees, because it is an enterprise solution, when implementations do take quite long, generally depending on the scale of the project itself. In a nutshell, I don't know if Nolan, you want to add something around it, but in a nutshell, that's really what we focus on.
Shadab, thank you. That was incredibly succinct and a very good understanding of the business. But just to summarize from my understanding, because it's obviously been a lot of time to build up such a comprehensive solution for so many different problems. So in my understanding, you've created a platform that's modularizable for your clients within their environments to be able to solve specific problems related to fleet management, loyalty, and payments processing. And they've got access. So instead of having to develop or customize solutions for them, you've got the modules that they can essentially place together that they can utilize for their own environment and problems to solve. And I'm assuming how you'll do that is, besides the access, is a consultative approach in terms of helping them understand what's best for them, implementing a solution for them based on pre-built products, and essentially integrating that into their own platform that makes it feel like their own, that's also white labeled and then self-branded. And then base that on a typical SaaS business model around usage. Is that correct?
Yeah, we must get you to do the sales for us. No, you said it quite well. But in a nutshell, right, typically our customers either look at the fleet payment solution or the loyalty solution or the payment platform, which is our cloud-based product, right? They don't take all of it. Our strategy has always been to see what the customer needs, right? And they don't need all those three things at the same time or many of the other 20 products. They pick one product out of the stack. But because it's an ecosystem, the way the platform has evolved over time, it's become an ecosystem around those industries, right? Like oil and gas, banking, and so on. Whereby as the customer interacts with the platform, let's say one oil company needs a fleet payment system. They want to launch a new fleet payment product. They would go out, and then when we take them through the platform, they will see, oh, there's carbon module now, which is a value add product to the fleet payment system. Oh, there's EV payment system available now as well. So now they can start targeting EV payment systems, then home-based solutions, and so on. So they extend the offer as they learn about the product and as they see, okay, I don't have this particular product in my market, but I do have the customer base. Now I can upsell this new product to my customer. And that's how the relationship grows and the customer gets into the ecosystem of Payment24 because they see the value that they can start generating new revenue. And that is very important for us to make sure our customer is successful and their business cases are successful. Because if that's not successful, we've just wasted 9 months in implementing the product. So it's very critical that we focus on customer requirements, customer gaps, and customer needs. So we ensure the not just the features and the nice fancy platform, but actually commercially the business is viable and the business case is viable. So really focus on customer centric and what they need from an enterprise perspective. That's really what drives our growth once we get into the customer. But the initial challenge is let's get to know the customer first, and that's obviously once we do that. After that, it's on autopilot.
And I think that's one thing we often mention is our customers are more partners to us because it's a long road, it's a long journey, right? And there's a lot of education involved as well. We obviously, I would like to say we are experts in what we do. And we also assist our customers to see those business models that are out there and how they can utilize Payment24 or for that matter any other product to get to those customers. And that's quite important to us. We also don't impose that they have to use Payment24, right? If we have a module of X, we don't say you have to use it because you're using Payment24. You can use your whatever on one of our competitors as well, but we will also work with them to make sure that at the end of the day, you've got the best value proposition for your customers. And again, to Shadab's point, we need to make sure that they are successful. And our aim is obviously to get Payment24 in as much as possible. And very often, right, we just need to get that foot in the door, and then it's really easy for our customers to move on to a different module because it just seamlessly integrates and it just, it makes it easy. And if you are a trusted partner, it makes a difference as well, as opposed to you're a customer and you're just trying to sell you something.
I love the mentality that you have and that you're sharing there, because when it comes to large businesses, there's so much opportunity, but between the opportunity of the amount of work to be done, sales cycles are long, trust building is long, consensus decision making, it's all something that takes quite a lot of time. And in my opinion, there's few things that's more trust building than if someone's willing to work with a competitor or even refer a competitor, because then it genuinely shows that you have my best interest at heart. An example that I like to give in this in very small cases is when I was in Cavendish Square once and looking to buy a cooler box. And I went to Cape Union Mart and I spoke to one of the sales consultants there. And they said, yeah, we've got these ones, but they were a little bit more expensive than what I was looking for. And I was like, oh, okay, do you potentially have any cheaper range or cheaper options? And he's like, honestly, not really. But, if you're looking for something a bit cheaper, why don't you go downstairs to Pick and Pay or maybe to Checkers and have a look, and then you can buy one of those. And I was so impressed. And then I went downstairs and then didn't find a cooler box that I actually wanted. And I immediately went upstairs and then bought the products. But the experience that I walked away with was like, wow, my perception of Cape Union Mart as a brand, not just that person, has now been elevated so highly because he was just so willing to help me out as a customer that I'm more likely to go back and for more things than just a cooler box. And if that can apply in a small retail example, imagine what that can do in a consultative sale selling an enterprise solution to a large business. That's just my 2 cents.
Just to add to that, right? I mean, sometimes we don't win a tender or a project with a customer, but it's not like after that we are sour grapes and, hey, we didn't win it, we should have won it, or whatever. Well, a lot of the time what happens is because of the way we handle the whole process, and even we didn't get it, but we still imparted some ideas or knowledge base to the customer. Sometimes actually, as this happens more than often, that actually eventually the customer does come back, maybe not for the same project, maybe for the next project, right? So it is important that you maintain that relationship. And I think customer-centric is important, ensuring that you're thinking about the customer. If you were on the other side, you don't want to be locked down. In enterprises, the biggest fear is, because they're buying these big platforms, fear of getting locked down into this ecosystem or anybody else's ecosystem. And with our 4 principles, meaning open platform, real-time, hardware-wise independent, hardware agnostic, infrastructure-wise light, and being white label. Those 4 principles of our platform gives the enterprise customer that comfort that they will still have the flexibility in the future to move around. And that is also quite important, I think, to give that comfort, mental peace to the customer.
100%. And as we were saying offline before this, it's when it comes to enterprise solutions, switching costs are so high. So the fear of not being able to be in control over what my own solution is I'm locked in for so long. And if it turns out the fact that if business processes need to change and business requirements change, but I'm stuck with the system, then we've gone 2 steps forward to go 3 steps back. And I love that. Anyway, without going down this rabbit hole around customer centricity and cooler boxes, let's go get into the founding story, guys. Can you just tell me about how you started the business and what inspired the idea in the first place?
So, I mean, we both come from, obviously, Nolan and I used to work at the same organization. It was an oil company back in the day. And we used to be on the other side of the table buying fleet payment systems, fleet card systems. And Nolan, you used to be in the IT side of things, IT system side of things. So we collaborated quite a lot in our previous jobs. And when we were looking for this oil company back in the day for a fleet card system, we went through globally looking at systems. And what we found was that they were all these other companies, they were selling basically same thing with a different color, pretty much. Old school magstripe technology that was like launched in 1970s and 80s is still live and kicking, right? Or there's another technology in our industry called nozzle and tank, which was also 1990s. And this is 2010 I'm talking about, right? Whereas internet is good. You have connectivity, you have contactless coming up, right? And the main problem for fleet payment system was always like, how do we secure refueling, right? Because that's quite expensive buy. These days it's 2,000 a pop for a small passenger car. For big trucks, it's 20,000 rands, right? So how do we secure this fueling process for customers? And that's what customer wants. Um, and the systems out there, magstripe, so much fraud, nozzle and tank, so expensive. And we sat there thinking about, okay, I'm sure these giants of the industries who have 30, 20, 30, 40 years of experience, they will realize there's a better way of doing this. And they don't need to continue with this Me Too dinosaur product. But 2, 3 years later, we're still in our jobs, right? And see, nothing has happened. Nobody has it hasn't clicked to anybody out there that it can be done better. Globally, we were looking at. So we just decided, me and Nolan, our background is software development. So we just, sat down, started coding something, right? We had a one pager of this is the 4 things we want to solve. And we had to focus on those 4 things, right? Vehicle verification, driver verification, security, and hardware agnostic, and everything real time. Those are the principles that we started with and started coding the basic product. It took us a while to code the basic product. The MVP was, a couple of years later. But we were still fearing that by the time we get to the finish line between the small group of people that we were, that somebody else with, hundreds of people will just knock it out of the park. It did not happen, right? And we found our first customer eventually a couple of years later. And, the rest is history. From there, the product has evolved and evolved and evolved, and is now becoming this massive monster of 20 different products, 3 different verticals. But yeah, that's how we started, looking at trying to solve one small real problem out there for enterprises. And yeah, luckily worked out.
That's one thing that we still see today is, you've got these incumbents and companies or customers, they don't really have choice, right? They reluctantly use these companies that they've always used because they just don't, there's nowhere else to go. And those companies are obviously sitting in the bound seats, as so your typical innovator's dilemma kind of situation, right? They're not going to change because they're coining it. So someone else needs to come and try and break into that industry. And I can tell you that's difficult as well.
Very difficult.
I would think in any industry, but certainly in this industry, it's a very close-knit group of individuals, right? They all know one another. And to try and get that initial credibility is difficult. So I think we were lucky. We were very persistent, though. But one of our first major tenders that we were awarded, we actually had to submit it 3 times because the first time it was issued and we came out on top. It's a local company, international company with international, obviously, owners. And they almost couldn't believe that this little Payment24 company coming out of nowhere were awarded the tender. So they ran it again. And we came out on top again. And then eventually they ran it all the way from overseas, and it was Payment24 again. So 3 times we had to submit and tender and convince everyone. And that's really where we got our first big start, I would think.
Sure. I think that's an incredible story in itself, because I hear so much about tender processes and been in them myself that, kind of kudos to them, because usually you think entering this, it's going to go to just whoever the biggest fish is. But that sounds like the most well-governed tender processes. Like it's like you came out as the best, and it was so objective that everyone's like, hold on, this can't be right. Right, so we can't be going for an early stage startup to solve this. We got to rejig this again because we believe in our process, and it happened twice. And it's like, wow, okay, cool. It really is these guys, and we went with them, and it just might have proved their procurement process right. moving forward, and they
times,
would
not
double
twice.
down on it. So that's amazing.
Yeah,
3 times. And
Yeah,
they're still
3
our
times.
customer.
they still have a customer.
Well, I think it just proves that their tender process was really effective.
Definitely, it was. It was. Yeah, I think that was the big break, and you need that big break. I think to crack open the market for you, because and this is not just in South Africa. Obviously, we're in other countries now. You see that in every region you go in. It's established players, local or international. They dominate the market, and to break into that market in an industry we are in, it's complex. It's difficult, and you need a lot of patience and luck, I guess, and honesty on the tender awarding side of things to be able to break through that ceiling. But you need to know what you're doing as well, right? We didn't win by purely luck as well.
And a thick skin. Yeah, you need a thick skin as well, because you get kicked down a lot. You need to get up and just carry on. That's just how it works.
Yeah.
So before continuing, right, I just want to clarify about your industry, because I understand that your product and offering can be utilized in many separate verticals, and you target many separate verticals. So how would you define the industry that you're in specific, at least especially when you started off, right? In terms of, because you say that, it's very established, everyone knows everyone, mafia kind of mentality, they're using dinosaur technology, right? What was the industry that you were in and are in?
Oil and gas. So that was our main industry. It still is. Got a big piece of our puzzle. We built the entire platform, our ecosystem around our platform around the ecosystem. So oil and gas is what we've been focusing on mostly. But banking and other industries retail, convenience have evolved. But primary focus is oil and gas.
Okay, so then to expand on that, with my understanding is when we're talking about fleet management, we're speaking specifically to like the petrol vehicles going from service station to service station to be able to deposit fuel. Same thing with gas. When we're talking about customer loyalty, we're looking at the forecourt in these service stations as well to be able to generate customer loyalty, and the payments processing within that. So that essentially the mark that you were targeting these companies, but I think everything seems like it was centric to how service stations operated. Is that correct?
Exactly. It's and both B2C and B2B environments, right? Because they work very differently. And typically in oil and gas, they are two separate divisions. So, for example, when in a B2B solution, these large transport companies sign up with oil and fuel retailer, BP, Caltex, and so on. And BP, Caltex will have their own fleet card offers out there in the market where they will sell that product to the B2B fleet operators, DHL and those kind of players. And they will use that payment system, the fleet payment system, a tag or a card or whatever it would be, to go refuel at the BP network, Caltex network, or any oil company specific network, right? And they get some rebates or discounts or however it would the offer works or the commercial relationship works. That's the B2B component of it. And because these fleet operators have hundreds of trucks, hundreds of drivers, and management of that is quite complex. On the B2C side, a lot of companies are designing loyalty programs. I mean, as you know, in the industry, almost every single oil company locally and globally have a loyalty program. You earn 10 cents a liter or gallon or whatever the case is. You go to the C store, you earn some points and you can redeem those points. Then there are banking loyalty programs like UCount, eBucks, and then there are retailer partnerships where Pick and Pay can go Smart Shopper user will go refuel at earn points at BP and so on, right? So that's the consumer component of rewards and loyalty that we assist with. And the third component is your normal experience of going to the forecourt or the convenience store, buying goods, refueling, and paying with your credit card seamlessly. You don't really think what happens in the background. There's a lot that's happened in the background. Purchasing fuel is one of the most complex IT processes out there, right? There is dispensers, there is a forecourt controller, and there is a point of sale. And typically, if you go to a Woolworths, there's only a cash register that you see where they ring up the transaction, swipe the card, and done. In case of a fuel retailer, it's not that simple. There are multiple components out there, and it's just fuel. Once it's given, you can't just take it back if your credit card declines, right? If you buy from Woolworths and you're buying some clothing, if it declines, you can just return the clothing, right? And you walk away. In case of fuel, no, it's in your fuel tank. How do you manage all of that? So, and it's a 24/7 industry on top of that, right? These attendants are carrying around cash all over the show 24/7. So it's a very unique, different, complex industry. And you can't just take something off the shelf designed for retailers and take it and retrofit it for fuel itself. Can't, shouldn't. A lot of people have tried. Some have succeeded to some extent, right? But it's not same as like us. We've built a laser focused product targeting this industry. And that's really been the formula to success, one of the formulas to success. There are many parameters. This is one of them. We understand that industry and we built the solution purposefully for that particular industry. And we've replicated that same way of working across different industries that we try to go into. We can't solve this problem for all industries. We are niche platform provider focusing on niche industry. I think that's a good selling point for us, but because we spend time learning about that industry as well. We're still learning.
And I can't help smiling while you're talking, because it's one thing I love about entrepreneurship and entrepreneurs is that the passion that comes through around the problems that you're solving. And I think specifically within this niche, speaking about the complexity of all of these different IT processes in terms of managing payments and measuring fuel, it's just epic to see that passion come through. So thanks for sharing, Shadab. So guys, I think a natural part of when you are trying to enter a market, specifically as a new entrant, with some things that are very established, especially in this space, because they're not a few small players. With fuel retailers, there's a few massive players. It's a franchise-based business model for the most part. So, trying to target solutions that needs to be at the corporate level, you can't really go down to the franchisee level with many of these solutions. I can really imagine how difficult it was to enter that. So I think that really contextualizes when you started off, is you took a far more developer approach where you had an idea of specifically about a problem to solve. But after that, really started off with, if they buy it, we'll build it. So it's really a lot of business requirements gathering, a lot of speccing, a lot of building trust. And I think also one thing that goes unsaid is the size of the network that you had in this industry because of having been in it for so long. So just talk me through a bit of the early days, because a lot of, and the reason why I say this is a lot of software development agencies I speak to, they've got this point of, we're providing a service, but we want to do our best to try build a product that we can just be able to sell over and over again and not have to worry about our cash flow. So from the get-go, you were building a product to begin with, but then you did it the other way around. So you built a product, you solve problems that became more and more of your product stack. So talk to me about those early days around, just solving problems with technology and how you managed to grow during that time.
Okay, sure. So for us, when we started, right, and just like any other desperate entrepreneurs, we'll do what it takes, right? And we'll do anything pretty much at that point, right? Yes, we had this idea of, here's a gap in the market. That's what we need to actually get to. But to get to, you need funding, right? To get funding, you need revenue. So it's for that, because of that, we will do anything we need to, whatever a customer wants, right? If they want us to build a popcorn machine, we'll build a popcorn machine. But in a nutshell, whatever, our philosophy was, like you mentioned, pretty much, if they'll buy it, we'll build it, right? Not the way Theranos said it, but in the software solution side of things, because we know our skills, we are pretty techy, we are very good with R&D, right? So that philosophy worked for us. And that actually opened up new doors to enhance the platform at a later stage as well, that the way of thinking. Because customer knows there's a problem, hence they want to go and buy that product. And we were the ones building that product for them. And that's how we expanded the product gradually over time. But at some stage, right, in the past 5 years, 6 years, we got to a stage where we said, you know what, now the product is established, we have established market presence across multiple verticals. Now we were a bit more purposeful. That philosophy of, if you buy it, we'll build it, we kind of stopped, right, 5 years ago. We still might look at a gap and go and build it based on customer needs and convert into a full product, but it is lot less. Now our focus is a bit more selective. We have specialized in our product into particular areas now, right? That's what we try to sell, right? As customer needs some enhancement, we will do the enhancement, but a lot of the time, customers now demanding certain things which we think is not going to add value to the product or to our platform, we might say no, right? Say, you know what, this is maybe not for us. Maybe go in that direction to that competitor or that service provider, and they can provide this better, and we will integrate their solution into our platform. So they're still part of our ecosystem, but still, if we can't solve the problem, we'll point them into the right direction. But you get to a stage, we are at a stage now that we are a bit more selective in our approach. We don't say yes to everything. And we also pick up certain size customers, but, because, technically, mentally, we're still startups and we will never change that, right? We can be 1,000 people company, we'll remain a startup. And that means we need to be very frugal and agile at the same time in how we proceed our platform and our product strategy. Right. So sometimes it's hard to say no because that entrepreneur, hey, if I take this, I will get this extra revenue, but at what cost? Right. Previously, that was not in the thinking the first 5 years.
Just on that, I think also being technically minded, Shadab and I, it almost takes discipline to say, we're not going to build it, even though we both know we can probably build it ourselves over a weekend if we wanted to. But we have to remember, listen, we're running, this is our strategy, this is what we're going for, this is the company. We're not the developers of and software engineers of 10 years ago. This is not core to what we do, so rather pass on at this point. But maybe also just back to the if we build it, they'll buy it kind of thing. Like Shadab said, it was very focused, right? It's not like we would do anything. But even at that point, when we built something, it was really an effort to make sure that it's something that we can reuse, right? So up to today, when we build something, we'll make sure that we can use it for different customers, and that version 1 is configurable so that we can have various options available. And that's one of the things that our customers like, right? We don't sell a cookie cutter solution. This is our payment product. There you go. You use it as it is. There are a myriad of different options and checks and balances and switches that you can change to make it a completely different product. So even, we've got various enterprises using the same module, for instance, whether it's loyalty or fleet. They all use it slightly differently, and it suits their strategy. It's not they need to change their strategy because that's how their software solution works. It needs to be the other way. So we need to support what they need to deliver at the end of the day. And I think that's a very key focus from us and our software engineering department as well.
There's a lot of what you've spoken to here that I find, like, one thing I love about tech entrepreneurs, but it's also there's also an Achilles heel to it. But the point is, as a technical person, you love to build things and solve complicated problems. As an entrepreneur, you love to sell things and solve complex problems. So, but the joined together part of that is then around the lack of discipline and focus that can come with who am I building and what for. And this is where I mean with the Achilles heel comes in, is because you enjoy the process so much, you end up building products because you want to, rather than because your customers need it. And so that's where a lot of distraction can come in. And it seems like you guys had that discipline and focus straight from the get-go. And especially in this time when you're saying is like, if they need it, we'll build it. But just making solutions that could really. And I think the boundary that you created was very much the industry that you're focusing on, the kinds of problems that you were trying to solve. And my assumption is that these problems usually existed on a value chain. So it wasn't just around the fact that they were in myriad departments and speaking at different levels, as you were solving problems across a value chain. And now this is, I'm going to segue into the point where I think the 0 to 1 journey came to an end, is when you decided to stop doing that. You stopped saying, okay, yes, well, if you buy it, we'll build it. And now you put these puzzle pieces together into an enterprise solution. Tell me what that experience was like when you realized, okay, cool, we no longer need to build in order to sell. We can now piece together and sell in a different business model. We can sell product driven rather than development driven. What was that like?
For Nolan, it was tough. I can say that he's more techy than I am. But it's not like one day we woke up 5 years later say, okay, now we're not doing this. I think it's a journey you have to go through, and the transition from that thinking to the way we ended up where we are now, right? It takes time. It takes maybe a year or two to change your mentality and your strategy of the how you proceeding from that point onwards. I mean, somebody said, right, company is like a child which goes through phases, being a infant, a toddler, teenager, and so on, right? So I would think we're at a teenage stage of that, right? So we've gone through the transition. We've experimented. We failed a lot, right? It's not like we not didn't fail. We've done so much development that we wasted in hindsight. But again, we learned from it, and maybe 5 years later, we've come went back to it and made it into a proper good product and sold a lot of it. But it is a journey. I don't think there's you flip a switch and it happens. And it's very difficult for techies, especially because it is a double-edged sword. Us being techies, I think, because we do like designing products, and don't get us wrong, we still like having some fun in that space. But that fun meaning building new products. But that does mean that we'll have that fun again, keeping the customer needs and the industry where it's moving towards. Keeping in mind, because fear of failure is important. You don't want to become that dinosaur that you just replaced either. So now our focus has become, how do we have more fun? Let's look at what's happening. AI is quite big, right, out there. So how do we incorporate that into the platform, right, and take the platform overall to the next stage? Well, that's fun, right? And then we do some cool things like audio vision. Nobody's doing it. We hate doing Me Too products. We hate doing that, right? Because then there's no USP. When we go pitch to the customer, there's no that single line I can say or Nolan can say that will catch customers' attention. Hey, this is a real problem these guys are trying to solve, right? That nobody's trying to solve. Those are the things that are rare. You can't just come up with those things every day. It takes 6 months, a year. Once in a year, you'll come up with that one idea to add to your punchline when you're pitching the product, right? And they're getting that attention. And that's the fun part then. And then go and build it. We still have fun, but a bit more focused fun.
And maybe just to also add what Shadab said in terms of, or rather to your question, when did we decide that we can maybe focus a bit more on what we need to do? I think also revenue is an important part of it, right? We were always bootstrapped. So from our perspective, we needed to make sure that we could pay, the office rental and salaries and what have you. So once you become a bit more established and you're more secure of your income, then you get that a bit of more freedom to say, okay, I'm not going to take on this project now because we've got that recurring revenue. And recurring revenue has always been one of our focus areas, right? That's what we're after because it's a SaaS-based product, transactional-based, and that's really, there's and like you said, it's not overnight, but month by month, year by year, it becomes easier, and up to a point where you can now say, okay, finally, we at that point where we can only focus on building our product roadmap, and support our customers where we want to be.
And what was that trigger point? My assumption is that you kept interacting with customers, specifically new customers, over and over again, and they keep bringing up the problems that you've already solved. And it's like it got to a point where it's like this is happening so frequently that we're actually just reselling stuff that we already have. So we don't need to go build new stuff. Maybe we should rethink our strategy. Is that what happened?
That's what happened probably once we have enough customers and that enough feedback was coming through continuously. At that point, it happened. So it took 5-6 years to get there, but exactly at that point that happens, right? Because you have now enough customers coming through the door, but they're asking similar kind of things now. So you try to adjust and label that the platform, but you still tweak and enhance gradual. Then it becomes more gradual, purposeful enhancements that you do the platform, because again, you cannot stand still in this industry. You can't. That is the end of you, in our opinion, right? So we will never stand still, And that's one of the selling points for a customer, because we are going to the customer and say, here's a new thing that's happening in the industry. Do you want to try it? Right? We also do that, and that customers do love that.
But again, also if it's an existing customer, it becomes a lot easier, right? That trust and credibility is already there. And it's never really a hard sell. We don't go and like shove it down their throats. And it's really, this is what we offer. This is maybe every now and again, this is what we're currently building. This is what we'll be building in the next 6 months. If there's any interest, let us know and we can maybe do a pilot or something. And that's what they like, right? There's that continuous feedback, and we also assist to help them with their R&D in a way. Where's the industry going? What should we be looking at? They, of course, I've got all the theoretical knowledge, I think, and everything that they require. But that how do we actually get to that point might not be as simple for them. So sometimes when we tell them about some modules or features that are coming up, then it might ring a bell, and then they know this is how we can put this together.
100%. And this is just giving me a thought that is very half-baked, and I'm going to externalize it anyway. But it's just another view into product market fit, because you get to this point of feedback or data saturation from both your existing customers as well as new customers around what are my problems, how are they being solved, what is the experience and benefits and value that I'm getting from this, where you get to the point of, I don't necessarily feel like I'm learning too much more about my customers and my market, because you're telling me things that I already know, and I've got the answer. I've got the playbook, at least in my head, around, okay, you bring this, I'm able to solve that. And the reason why I point that out is that when you get to that almost level of data saturation, that you understand it, the marginal effort to really get a reward, get a sale, get increased customer satisfaction, improve experience, troubleshoot problems, etc. It's the marginal effort's very low, but the reward to yourself or to customer experience now starts becoming quite high. And I think that is a very good sign. I'm assuming someone in the audience who understands the technicalities of product market fit a lot better than I do could probably explain that in a more simplified theory, but that's just something that clicked for me now.
Let's pause here for a moment. If you've made it this far into the episode, it's probably because we're talking about things that you're trying to implement in your business. You found your sweet spot in the market, you've gained momentum, and you've already been through a phase of growth. Because of this, you know that on the outside, growth is super sexy, but on the inside, it's incredibly difficult to achieve and to sustain. So now I've got a question for you. Now that you know the sacrifices it takes to achieve growth, how much time are you currently spending thinking about your direction and your next phase of growth? I bet not as much as you'd like, because you're still in the thick of it. Leading, deciding, pushing for performance, pursuing new opportunities, maybe even thinking about selling the business. See, your story is yours. But this chapter where growth meets complexity, this is when things get hard. Because you can listen to insights from podcasts and stories from people that have been there before, but applying it to your context is a completely different ballgame. So let me help you. If you want to have a 90-minute, no strings attached conversation with me, then head over to Metavolve's website in the description of this podcast below, and let me help you navigate this next phase of growth. Because at the end of the day, building a great business is complex, but it doesn't have to be complicated.
So on that note, guys, right, you are at product market fit, right? So this is the journey you've been on to now. You're now selling an enterprise solution. You're now selling very much a product driven. That's who you've become. And what happened shortly after that is that you got in Standard Bank as an investor. Talk to me about that. How did that happen, and what did they really unlock for Payment24?
Yeah, Standard Bank acquired 40% of Payment24, I think, in December 2019, 2020, around about there. But also, again, at that point, they were a customer of Payment24, right? Shadab and I didn't go out to the market to raise. We were chugging along at our own steam. But I would think, again, having that relationship with them and Standard Bank seeing firsthand what we could deliver. And now they can probably use it in their business as well. Then they approached us and asked if they there's any interest on our side. And obviously, being Standard Bank, it's the largest bank on the continent. So what interested us there was the fact that they are in multiple countries in Africa. And from day one, that's one thing I can say is Shadab and I, we always said that we're building a global product, right? It's a global solution because it's a global problem, especially the first module that we built, fuel and fleet payment, rife with fraud, big issue globally. That's where we saw that Standard Bank would be a good fit for us, given their large footprint. And kudos to them. I think they've been a good partner. I'm saying partner because they treated us not as like sometimes you hear of horror stories with some investors trying to take over. I think they've largely left Shadab and myself to run and operate the company the way we see fit. Of course, they have some good insights and they've given us some good ideas over the years. And that's where we are at this point.
Fantastic. And I love that as well, where there's one thing about getting an investor when you don't need them. And it's not just about the bargaining power that you're able to have in that situation. It's about the fact that you're really looking at them not to unlock growth through capital, but to unlock growth through scale and access and market presence. And I think that's the difference between getting a strategic investor versus just getting a capital investor. And don't get me wrong, obviously easier said than done, right? It's like you've got to be able to specifically fund the product build in the beginning. But I think that if you can be in that position, I think it can unlock so much more growth for a business than just having to get an investor just for the sake of capital. And to your point around the horror stories, I think that's often what happens is because there's already this trust built. They already are a customer of you, so they know that you can deliver. And now it's just how do we unlock mutual success? So one thing, again, we were speaking about offline before this, but the first thing that I think about with many entrepreneurs, specifically when you're getting an investor on board, and if you're getting Standard Bank as an investor, imagine a lot of people, and this is probably a naive perspective, at least for me, but I hear that and I imagine a bank vault being opened, right? So you've now got all this access to resources, and at least proverbially, but now you've got this access to all these countries. How did you just not go mad with excitement and just start saying yes to everything and just grow at all costs and do everything that you can? Because now we've made it, right? Look, Mom, I've made it, and let's just do everything. Talk to me about that. Did you actually do that? Because that's obviously the assumption. And how did you maintain discipline when suddenly you unlocked so much opportunity?
It's I think a DNA problem there. I don't think it's a conscious effort or anything. It's a manufacturing fault, perhaps, or quality, whatever you want to call it. Nolan and I are never satisfied with success we have, or lack of success, rather, I would say. Right? I think we could have done a lot better every time, in every aspect. That's how Nolan and I are built. That's one of the common, I guess, things between us. So I guess when we signed up Sandbank investment, we probably thought we could have done better, right? And we should have done better, and we should have done it faster. This should have happened 3 years ago, right? And we should have been at a different level already. So I think that's unfortunate or fortunate, whatever it is. That's how it is. Even where we are today, I think we could have done actually better, and Nolan thinks the same, right? And we should have done better in reality. We don't have marketing people in our company, sales and marketing. There's no sales and marketing department. You're speaking to those two sales people who suck completely at sales, right? We are techies, ex-software programmers, okay? And you don't need to edit that out because we do suck at, especially Nolan. He's terrible, all right? And I'm not any better anyway, right? And so you don't want to buy stuff from software developers. Who in their right mind would do that, right? But I guess we have got a good product, right? To answer to your question is very simple. I think it's just we have never been satisfied with what we've achieved. We probably never will be. That's why I said it's probably a DNA problem, manufacturing fall between Nolan and me. And maybe that's how we keep our feet on the ground and keep pushing. Because, like I always say, aim for Mars, land on Moon, and it's okay. All right, but we haven't landed on Moon yet. I think it's still a long way to go. So, and it's not like the floodgates just open, right? You still have to work very hard at these Africa expansions. It's not like somebody makes a decision and everybody just takes it. No, it's hard graft. Standard Bank is a massive operation, multiple companies, multiple divisions within those companies. It's extremely complex, right? And it's a journey that we did not realize it will be like that, right? And kudos to Standard Bank. They've pushed internally also, and we've done okay, right? We could have again done a lot better as usual, but it does that fear of just like spending like nuts and running out of money is never our strategy. That's not how Nolan and I are built. We're not that kind of fintech. We are organic fintech. So once we had more investment available, it was deployed systematically to make sure that we are growing organically. We're buying organic growth, not artificial growth. Once we run out of money, what happens at that point? There's no such thing. We are buying organic growth with the funding that we raise. And that is important. I think that mindset is important. Some startups, fintech, they're just very good at raising. Nolan and I, actually, because we're not very good at sales, we're probably not good at raising funds. But at the same time, we are pretty decent at building solid organic businesses. Payment24 is going to be around for a long time after we are gone. So that's the kind of business we wanted to build, and we continue to build, but with a startup mentality. Be frugal.
Yeah, I think the frugal part is a big thing for us, right? We really stretch our pennies far just from day one. That's just how we operated, right? Because we were always bootstrapped. And I don't really think that changed so much, but also, we are a small company. Well, at that point, we were slightly smaller than we are now. But you also can't go and hire 50 new hires and bring them into the company, right? It's just not going to work. Firstly, we're very specialized, so people need a bit of time to adjust, not just to the technology, but also to the speed. And people always think they work in a very fast-paced environment until they go to a startup. I think then sometimes there's a bit of a rude awakening for them. It's just how it is, right? You have to wear many hats, and you're always dealing with some sort of fire somewhere. So firstly, we can't just find people and just deploy them. But also it's important for the company culture in a way, because if you bring in 50 new hires, your culture will change a little bit. And we're not, Shadab and I, we're not big on like, rah, this is the company culture. I think the main thing for us, and I'm not maybe, don't be an arsehole, right? That's vital for us. And that's how we treat our customers as well. But that is really key, right? If there's, one bad apple, especially if it's a tight-knit team, one bad apple can really, make the work environment not as nice. And that, again, what we're looking for is we're looking for staff and employees that will be with us until they retire. That's the aim. It doesn't always work. In our environment, it's very much sink or swim. But most of our team has been with us for quite some time.
Mm. Yeah, I'm very tempted to go down the talent rabbit hole. But if I'm listening to your story, and if I'm reading between the lines and putting some pieces together, I think back to the fact that you both worked in corporate beforehand, specifically in oil and gas. The kinds of budgets and numbers that you're used to experiencing were very high. So the point that even if you're in a scale up stage, you know that these numbers aren't big. And especially the kind of customers that you're now servicing, you know that these numbers aren't big because you've got a different reference point versus a lot of younger founders. They start getting to these points and they see these big numbers and they think like, okay, cool, this is incredible. But for you, it's like in the grand scheme of things, it's like, it's still not a lot. So that's one. Two, the fact that you're bootstrapped means the fact that you had already built in this discipline around budgeting and spending, that you were able to do more with less, so you didn't necessarily need more. Now bring this later, and I think this is also speaking to the discipline that comes with being the tech founders that you are. And I think there's a great lesson in there that I wish I could unpack the psychology of. But the point of not going into one of two problems. Now we've unlocked this. Now we can build whatever we want, because now we're at that. We've at the point where we can now build whatever we want, develop whatever we want. Or the second problem of, okay, we've now got this investment. How do we build out the team and the business so I've got more freedom as a founder prematurely, instead of building out organically the structure, the employee structure, and essentially falsely, for lack of a better word, inflating that structure to try and remove oneself into what they would love to be doing. And I think you held back on those 2 points. And what you did focus on predominantly with this opportunity was around how can we take what we've already built and expand that into other countries through Standard Bank, because that alone is an already extremely complex activity. Let's not get distracted by the other things. This is the one strategy that we have. We know that this worked. The clients that we have are already multinational. We've proven that this can work in multiple countries across the same clients. Let's unlock this across multiple different geographies. And that is the sole aim and the sole focus. And let's not get distracted by anything else, because that will unlock sustainable growth for us. Did I get that right?
Yes, in reality, maybe. I mean, if, like I mentioned in the beginning, right, we in about 20 plus countries, and 90% of those countries are not Standard Bank countries, right?
Okay.
So don't get me wrong. Like I said, the Standard Bank is a complex, large organization, right, with companies within companies, and then divisions within companies. So it's a difficult process, long process, right? It started that way when we brought the investment in, but we did not want to depend on our investor, right? Plus, we didn't have the patience, to be honest, right? We are very impatient for success. So we kept pushing ahead, and 90% of the market that we are covering, the regions are covering, is nothing to do with Standard Bank from that perspective. Because that's one other mistake you don't want to make, is that you now rely on your external shareholders to help grow your company. No, it's your job. Find a way, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not your shareholders' job to grow your company. It's, as CEOs, it's your job to grow the company. And so we kept on pushing outside the network of Standard Bank. And that's been the most valuable for us, I think. Right, and that's where we've seen the most growth. And Standard Bank has been great, that's good, but we don't rely on it. And it will be a mistake for anybody to think that once you get smart money, because we call it smart money, if you get once smart money, that you just solely not focus on that, this big giant to milk there, or find opportunities within this massive shareholder of yours. No, I think that's a mistake, because then you're relying on that continuously instead of focusing on the wider vision that you had. You're building a platform for global multinational markets, not for Standard Bank or your investor for that matter, right? And it would have been a mistake. And luckily, I don't know if we did it consciously or not consciously. Nolan and I are not that smart, but we did the right thing, and we kept on focusing on our strategy that we had. Standard Bank was just icing on the top. Right. The main dish was still the multinational markets that we wanted to be in, and the customers we wanted to go. So I think that is something that has how it has worked out, and I think it will keep on going that route. Yes, we only one should look at smart money, not just VC and those kind of get some good capital and keep going. I think smart money is important. At least at that point. But again, you still need to drive your own strategy and focus on what you were focused on before you got the money on for. So that I would maybe just change in the assessment. But yeah.
Cool. So you've spoken now about organic growth, and that's been the predominant focus in the entire strategy that you've had throughout. I really want to understand what that means, because for me, organic growth is staying established with one's core market and growing in that through expansion and servicing that market better and continuously adding more value. You also blending that with geographical expansion as well, that was your strategy anyway, with or without Standard Bank. So I just want to understand, when you're talking about organic growth, what did that mean to you, and your context? How did you do it, and why did it require discipline?
So organic growth means, right, that the revenue we generate is what we redeploy to grow our market share or go into a new country, right? And a country that we can solve a problem for. That's also important, right? Like in 2016, we ended up in Berlin, right, as part of this startup program back in the day, right? What we said, okay, cool, we're gonna go into Europe and we're gonna solve all the problems for Germany, right? It did not work out that way, because the problems that we thought we had, right, in South Africa at that point, were not in Germany. Germany thought, there's no fraud here, guys. What are you trying to solve? Okay, there was fraud, but they didn't see it. But again, if they didn't see it, that means they didn't think it was a problem. Hence, it didn't need solving, right? So it is something to understand. But at the same time, organic growth does mean that for us, to expand further, we need to generate more revenue, more profit, so we can redeploy that capital into a suitable market, right, in the industry that we operate, and ensuring that the problem does exist, or they realize there's a problem to solve, right? We have obviously made some mistakes. We're not perfect, right? We went into maybe a market that, like Germany was a good example. We tried to crack that open. We haven't opened it yet, right? I'm sure we will. But this was like a long time ago. But at the same time, we've learned these things over trial and error a little bit, right? Careful trial and error. And now we go into the markets with open eyes, right? Emerging markets is that way our product is more suitable for, right? Developed markets, the perception is they have old systems, unfortunately, a little bit old way of doing things as well compared to emerging markets. Emerging markets want to skip a step and go next level automatically. Developed markets, they are so entrenched with their ways of doing things, they are more difficult to change. Emerging markets are a lot more easy to change. I mean, take example of M-Pesa in Kenya, right? Africa skipped the bank card and straight into mobile money. They skipped a stage, right? So similarly, in our industry, emerging markets perhaps are a lot more easier to adopt new technologies and new platforms like us and new ways of doing things instead of old ways of doing things. But taking our customer as we sign up, generating revenue, redeploying it into a new market, open up a new market, that's one way of doing things. The other way is natural organic growth, also meaning incoming, right? Where customers globally, are looking for solutions and they come across Payment24 as well. But being able to service somebody all the way in Panama in the peak of COVID, it takes some doing, right? Or in Latin America region, sitting in Cape Town, it's in peak of COVID, no flights, no nothing. It takes some doing. But you need, again, that's organic growth, going through the process and scaling your platform, trying to solve at the same time where the customer demand is coming in, and identifying the regions that where you can have a good market fit. So all those combination of those things, I would say, drives the organic growth naturally. You need a lot of patience, which you don't have. But again, you have to keep at it. And sometimes admit, okay, maybe that's not the market. Don't just keep, trying to hammer through. Maybe take a pause, think about it. Maybe try another thing in the meanwhile.
And I think maybe just all on that as well, in terms of our organic growth, I think one thing that we did do was we set aside a certain marketing budget each year. And some of that budget we deployed in new regions to assist our customers, especially the first customer, right? Where we might, give them a slightly better deal because we need that first customer in that region. Once we get a first customer, we have that reference customer, then it becomes a lot easier for us as well. So I think that's probably where, on the marketing front, that's really where we deployed some of our funds that we got. But at the end of the day, we're not the Uber kind of business model where we're just growing at all cost and we'll subsidize the riders for the foreseeable future, right? That's not our business model. We need to make sure that once that project goes live or that customer launches their project, that it is profitable for us. Otherwise, it's not worth doing.
And that's how you buy organic growth, I think. When I mentioned earlier, buying organic growth, that's exactly what it is. We bought organic growth. We didn't just, inflate it.
Well, and that's the point, right? It's the best way to grow is always is and especially in terms of finance, best way to grow is through the money from your customers, not through the money from investors or through loans. Like that's the best way to always do it. I definitely want to get into the product in a bit more depth, but I want to focus now on this geographical expansion and the fact that you were in Latin America, that you're now trying to target Germany and realizing that didn't necessarily work, focusing on emerging markets. I mean, all of this is like, through hindsight, we're able to create the simplicity, but I can imagine the process of it, there's a lot of figuring it out, right? So, but talk to me about how you were able to, gain that first customer in countries where you actually had no presence and paid for no right to be able to get a customer in there. So you spoke about Panama, right, of all places. How did you manage to get your first customer there in the first place from Cape Town during COVID?
So a lot of these regions open up, fortunately for us, via RFP tender kind of process where customers are coming to us, or consulting companies like Accenture and EY, all these specialist companies that are hired by these enterprise customers to go out, look for solutions for them to solve their problems. So it more comes inwards, us rather than going out and doing cold call sales and trying to open up market. Majority of it has been other way around, where globally, because again we build a product for global market, we positioned it accordingly. So there is a lot of incoming rather than outgoing targeting that we are doing. So that's how Panama happened. That's how entire Latin America happened. Southeast Asia, hopefully happening, and so on. So it's more incoming than outgoing, but creating that awareness that you are in the market is important, right? Nobody in Philippines will know that Payment24 exists, right? But now they do, right? Nobody in Panama would have known that we exist. So it is, again, a journey. There's no magic trick. There's no silver bullet for this. You have to build that credibility, right, by having these multinational customers. And that was, I think, quite an important factor, having multinational customers where somebody sitting in the other corner of the world will recognize that logo. Hey, this is one of our competitors using this product. Maybe let me have a look. Maybe they can solve the problem for me as well. That happens quite often, right? So it is incoming, Cameron. It's not so much outgoing that we go and target this country. We are at that stage now. We have plenty of incoming regions, new regions, which is keeping us busy. Although we are still purposefully targeting some developed markets, but it's going to be a long journey, longer than just the incoming journey where customers are approaching us from different regions of the world, different parts of the world. Going out to a particular new region, it's a lot more complex on your own. It will take a lot more time and a lot more investment. So we prefer the other way around. It's a little bit easier, and seems to be working quite well.
I just wanted to just latch on to that. We also do go to industry events, right, where it's very focused. Because like Shadab said, the companies need to know about you so that when they go out on RFP in 1 or 2 or 5 years, they know about Payment24. So at least you need to create that awareness so that you are in their consideration set when they go out on RFP or tender. Because also the way our business runs and our customers, how they run their projects, it's not something that comes out every year. It might be a a 5-year solution on the low end almost, I would think. So it's not something that comes along every year. And when they go out, you really want to be there. And once we get to that first step, then obviously then we can open the kimono and show them what we have. But if they don't know about it, it's not going to help.
100%. So I really want to get deeper in this. How did you make sure that you were findable? Because the couple of things that I'm thinking about there is the industry events obviously makes a lot of sense. The other thing that I'm thinking about now is you mentioned the consultancies of the world. And what they're going to be doing is they'll usually look at how are similar companies or competitors doing this in other like similar kinds of markets. What have they been done? They'll do some research. But even then, you still need to be findable, right? It's not just a straightforward thing of like, okay, look at this company. What products are they using? Like there's some kind of research that they need to do. So how did you make yourself findable to the consultants that they can dig a little bit deeper? And how did you make yourself findable to the customers? And other points I've got in here is like, was the search engine optimization? You mentioned industry events. So I wonder, how did you make yourself findable?
So in a nutshell, like I mentioned earlier, Cameron, that Nolan and I are not marketing or salespeople, and we really don't have that skill set within the organization. So the answer will be disappointing, I would say. We did not have a great strategy on that front from a marketing and sales perspective because we don't have the expertise, right? We are entrepreneurs, so we figure things out as we go along. And that's what we did. We figured things out, right? Okay, let's look at the industry events. What our competitors are doing, right? Where are they, right? Advertising or, which industry events they're entering, but again, what publications they are advertising into, right? How are they marketing? So we tried to obviously learn from these giants of the industry, which we were trying to replace. That was one thing we consciously did, right? But at the same time, I think that bigger trick was in the product itself and our product strategy. Because we built something for the niche market, right? Meaning oil and gas payment systems for fleets, for example. It's very niche. There are not 100 players for it out there. There are limited number of players that can do this because it's very expert area. Same with fuel loyalty or loyalty generally and payment systems for fuel and retail, right? It's niche. They are not like hundreds of companies out there doing this. Like if you look for a billing system, you will find a whole list Google full of it, right? But if you look for a fleet payments platform, it's a bit less competition from that perspective. That has helped us naturally, right? Making sure we built a good enough product with a decent enough customer reference, which is multinational. And to get to that part, it takes time. But once you have that, then it's, from there, it takes momentum. But to get get that far, it does take time. But again, it does help that you look at your competitors, right, what they are doing, because you're not competing with somebody where you can just SEO, right, your website and certain things, and people will buy. These solutions are not bought by clicking on a link and downloading a software and you have a customer. Unfortunately, I hope it was that easy. It's not. The only thing you can hope for is get an inquiry via a website, right? And maybe that leads into something. Okay. And it does work. But it is, I would say, I don't know, Nolan, if you want to add to it, but I think looking at your competitors, learning from them, they've been doing it for years, marketing and sales, right? And if it's not your forte, it's not ours, we try to learn from them. There's no harm in learning from competitors. They're also clever people.
Yeah, I agree on the nicheness of the product, right? It's our industry. It's not really a sexy industry, right? We're not Stripe or any of those cool companies. But when customers are looking for a solution, they typically know at least what they are looking for. And that's why we would often pop up in Google search results, etc. But to be honest, for a very long time, we didn't even have all our products on our website. specifically because we didn't want our competitors to know what we were up to. We were still like a lot smaller, and we preferred to fly under the radar for quite some time. We did, some of very large companies did actually copy some of our products and features that we have, but that's okay now. We're a bit bigger, we can absorb it. We don't forgive them. We're not going to forget, but regardless, that's just how it is, right? Especially in technology, it's simple to copy something. Just depends how good your copy is as well. But yeah, niche. So I think even those companies like Shadab mentioned, the consulting houses, I mean, they often didn't know anything. And I think very often we had to educate them on the industry, on the market, what their customers would actually want. And I think that's where, particularly Shadab, is very strong in educating prospective customers on where they should be going, and again that builds that trust and partnership relationship that they then come back to say, because this is someone that we can work with for the long term.
Yeah, it also just speaks to the very simple principle of nothing's going to do a better job of generating you new customers than just having a consistent track record of delivering great value to a niche set of customers already, because you start getting to this point where that inherently makes you findable. But what you also said now, and this is definitely something I'm going to reflect on at the end, it's just so obvious. It's like, because my mentality is often, I've got a very innovative mindset in terms of like always trying to like I encounter a problem and think about how I'm going to solve it, instead of thinking how have other people solved this exact same problem. Probably you mentioned a DNA or manufacturing fault in myself, instead of it's literally my first instinct is to be like, how can I solve this, instead of thinking, okay, who's already solved this for me? And it's just glaringly obvious now that you pointed out. And the reason I give the context there is, instead of trying to think through, okay, what's the customer buying journey? What are the trigger points and pain points? It's like, yes, that's all critically important, but just simplify it first. Where are your larger competitors advertising and marketing themselves? And just go to the same places and just advertise there as well, because it's already working in front of their customers. And then you can almost work backwards from there. So I love that. That's definitely something I'm really walking away thinking about. So we've spoken now about your geographical expansion through emerging markets. Your niche, you've become very known. You've been able to become super findable to these clients. Now another strategy you employed that I'm very curious to get into is that you invested in a payments company in Switzerland in February of last year. What brought that decision about?
Couple of factors. I mean, Nolan, I can be in so many places only, right? It's a big global market. And again, we've built this nice platform, but if people don't know, they don't buy. And time is critical, right? Like Nolan mentioned, competitors are copying, right? The same ones that were laughing at our solution, they are now trying to copy that. Okay, we set the new industry standard. They're trying to copy. So it becomes even more critical that we get to new markets as soon as possible. And on our own, Nolan and I, obviously, we can only do so much, and we're building our own team. But our opportunity became available in the European market. We always wanted to be in Europe, right, and focus on the European market, because Europe, we believe, is ready for disruption, right? Again, they're running 20, 30-year-old solutions. So opportunity presented itself where we had some industry experts available who could open the markets for us and focus on the European market and trying to get Payment24 into Europe. And that really was the two drivers, that we can't really do everything. We can't be everywhere. We are, medium-sized company, and plus, the right people became available. Right opportunity presented itself, and we took it from that perspective. It was not that we went out and looking to make an investment for European market. It just, came together nicely with our industry network. The right people became available, and also we are concerned always that, hey, we need to get to these new markets before competitors get to those markets with our copycat product, if they can copy. So those are the two drivers, really. And it's still early days. Jury is out. right? And we'll see. Maybe in 2 years' time from now, we will talk about it and see how it goes.
So you talk about the jury still being out, and we were speaking about this offline, but that investment happened. Still waiting for that first customer. I think now, if I might ask, it's like what are some of the learnings or the assumptions that you realized that you made going into Europe that haven't really worked, that you've had to correct yourselves on in this journey over the past year and a bit?
I think it's not correction. Right? It's not like I would call it complete mistakes or anything like that. It's more around the fact of you need to still understand the region. It's a complex region, right? Because I mean, Europe, so many countries, but they're all connected using a single euro. The products that one country has is the same product that everybody else has. So their business model, commercial model is very different, right? And to solve the European market is going to be a lot more different to the other markets that we've been solving. And we have to go on that journey. It's not going to be an easy, short journey. It's going to be a long journey to get there. So it's more about just adjusting your radar slightly, continuously for the still next a few quarters and trying to land the right opportunity. Because the nice thing about Europe is if you land one opportunity, it's a multi-country opportunity in one shot, right? It's not solving one little country at a time. So you have to have that patience. But we believe in that. I think it will just a matter of time. When it's open, the problems are there. It's just they need to be presented a bit differently. You not being physically yourself there, and Payment24 not being so known in the European market does create a hurdle. But again, it's the same hurdle that we've had in any markets we've entered, right? So you have to just keep working at it, and eventually it will land. But again, in an organic way, that the way we do it. So a lot of RFPs will come. We'll win some, I'm sure, and that will open the floodgates from there onwards. It takes time.
Yeah, I think we've got the right product. We have the right people there. And it really is just, now we need to find the right customer, that customer that has a need and are willing to, or customer that's willing to go with a new product in that area. That's kind of where we are. So like Shadab said, it's a matter of time, but it doesn't happen overnight, unfortunately.
No, of course not. It's also made me think that I think a lot of mistakes that people from more developed nations, I'm currently reading Factfulness, and the reason we're saying developed is because that's become a myth now, actually. But they come into Africa and they're thinking that a solution can, it's like it can transcend across borders. But Africa is a very unique place where each individual country has its own complexities. Whilst what you pointed out for Europe, it is actually the other way around. Is the fact that it's like if you solve a problem for the region, you solve a problem for the country, right? If you will, in terms of these enterprise level solutions, because these products are there. So I think the mentality when we're working in emerging markets and adapting to every single country and being able to do that, it's now a very different problem that you're solving. Is in terms of how do I solve this at a regional level, which is another level of complexity. At a macro level rather than these individual countries. So it's a very unique problem to solve. Guys, thank you. That's all we've pretty much got time for. It's been epic to hear your journey and story. I think the focus on organic growth and measuring discipline with impatience has been an excellent lesson. I just need to ask now, with that discipline and impatience, I guess, how does the next 6 to 18 months look like for you guys in Payment24?
It's going to be busy, very, very busy. We've got some massive projects that we've signed up and we're busy delivering those. So it's more, focusing on that. At the same time, I think the demand is insane out there for our product, which is very good. We're very excited about that, right? That's what we've been working towards, right, all these years. But it comes with its own pressure, I guess, right? And we do need to grow the company a bit. More management needs to be put in place. So we have come to that stage that we need, obviously, more managers available, building the executive team perhaps a little bit at the same time, and focusing on this momentum that we've built that we don't lose. Because again, we can lose it very easily as well if you mess up here there on your delivery. So it's not just about signing up customers; it's about delivering good product and good implementations. So it's a balancing act, and we need to be focusing on that balancing act for the next 2 years. Because we do see, I think, hopefully in the next couple of years, we would have taken the next level, and we are going to be the next stage as a company. We can see that happen. We can feel it. It's happening already. But to sustain, that means as a teenager, we might need to become a little bit more grown up, right? Get into university as a company. So yeah, that's the level, that's the stage we are at now. I think we are going to the next phase now.
Yeah, I think we'll continue building and innovating where we can. There's a lot on our product roadmap that we want to get to. We can't get to everything either, but it really is also getting the product out there now. We've got a huge, solid product that we feel is globally as good as it gets, and it's really getting it out there now and getting that to those new customers, but also, like Shadab said, balancing the delivery of those projects, because that's always key.
Awesome. I can't wait to follow the journey and see more and more success from you guys if you also do decide to do more, I guess, internal marketing, so we can actually, so the outsiders can see what's happening. There's just one question that I have for you that I end every podcast off with, and that's, what's the one question that I haven't asked you that I should have asked you that you'd like to answer now?
Yeah, I mean, how do I tolerate Nolan? You didn't ever ask that, right?
That was my question.
I look at his face every day for the last 20 years. We've been working together for not 21 years, actually. It's been terrible. Yeah,
don't remind me. Don't remind me.
Yeah, I mean, shit. I don't know why I haven't shot myself yet. But yeah, he's very lucky.
It'll be welcome.
He's very lucky. Yeah. Other than that, no, nothing else.
Well, I guess on that note, maybe answer the question. Why have you not yet shot yourself having dealt with the same person for the past 21 years?
I think we work very differently. So the one thing that we've learned over time, we don't work on the same projects, right? He will work on his projects, I'll work on my projects. But we work very closely. So that's why we still share an office even today, because, there's a lot of talk happening the whole time. And we bring different skills, even though we're both very technical. We look at problems from a different way, from different angles. So I think that all builds into this product that we are building. And that's why we haven't shot one another yet. We need one another, even though we won't admit it.
Unfortunately. And we literally sit across each other since we started Payment24 in the same office. I'm sure we can afford a separate office, but I don't think that would work as well as it works now. Right. And I think that's important. It's an important point that we actually, because we're bouncing ideas, fighting and arguing all at the same time, right? And it's natural. But I think having a good founding partner is important. Nolan, that's what I said. Nolan is very lucky that to find me. But I mean, jokes aside, it is important, I think. And you don't need to, I mean, in a lot of the startups that we come across, right? If the pairing is not right or you're on your own, it becomes difficult, especially if you're partnering with other founders. Because sometimes you trying to judge, okay, are they working as hard as I am, right? Are they adding as much value as I am, so on and so forth. That becomes a problem, right? It becomes toxic. We don't have that, fortunately, that situation within us, right? And we've been working long enough, and we are completely two different people, right? Very different way of in our personalities at the same time, but there are some common traits which complement each other, I think, and we challenge each other at the same time. But I think that mutual respect needs to be there when you're challenging, right? But if I still want to do something that I believe in and Nolan doesn't, I will go ahead and do it, and so will Nolan, right? And often people ask us, why join CEOs? That's not very common. How does it actually work, right? My answer to that is actually, if you have one CEO, you have that one failure point, right, where everything relies on. Here, we can do double the amount of work. There are two CEOs equally capable of dealing with it. So we can double the company in half the time. So I think it does work quite well. But again, you got to have some faith and trust on the other side. Naturally, you can't build it. I think you got to either you have it or you don't. And luckily, in this case, it does exist.
And I think the point there that works for me to think about it is viewing leadership as a function rather than as a role within a business. And if you do that, how you fill that function is entirely up to you. What's best for the people within the company, the people in the team, and what's best for the culture. So awesome! Thanks for sharing that. And please don't shoot each other, because I definitely want to see this lead to a lot more success. Gentlemen, thank you so much for being on the Founder Files. It's been an absolute joy and a privilege to hear your story. And I wish you all the best with your amazing ventures coming forward and your continued evolution as a company.
Thanks, Cameron.
Thanks, Cameron. Thanks for your time. It was fun.
The first thing I'm taking away from this conversation is definitely the easiest to remember and implement. And that's to market and advertise where our competitors are. This is one of those prime examples where, as a founder myself, I'm always trying to solve problems myself, but realizing I don't have to, because this has already been solved. The hard part is just obviously making sure that you get your competition right. So for example, with us, when we're targeting founder-led businesses that aren't growing, instead of competing with coaches or other strategy developers or maybe accelerators, more often than not, our main competition is marketing agencies and sales consultancies, because the growth problem is going to come down to a sales problem. So we need to position ourselves in that space. So I'm going to investigate where these marketing agencies and sales consultancies that we compete with are doing their marketing and advertising, because they've already paid the school fees to figure out what works. And I'm just going to follow in their footsteps to see what works for Metavolve. Secondly, it's all about organic growth. Now, this isn't a lesson, but more of a reinforcement, because we have no foreseeable intention to seek any form of capital injection. We're focused on constantly redistributing our capital into the growth of Metavolve to add more value to our customers and make the business more sustainable. So I'm not really going to change anything, but I have been reminded to be a bit more patient with it, because sustainable and profitable growth is always better than bought or artificial growth. My final thought is to share an office with Brett. We're fully remote at the moment, but when we get to the point of having offices, I think it would be great to have a shared one with him. I'll obviously have a separate podcast studio, but him and I spend so much time together sharing thoughts, having debates, or having full-on conversations every single day, that being able to do that in person will be a lot more efficient. My only concern, of course, is that will this time actually be effective, or will we spend more time getting excited about what we're talking about instead of actually working on the things that need doing? But I guess we'll cross that bridge when we get there. And that's it from me. Thank you for listening to another full episode of the Founder Files. If you aren't already following us, then make sure to do so on your preferred podcast platform and on our socials via the link in description below, so you never miss another episode. Until next time, cheers.